want the practicality and prestige of a German luxury SUV such as the BMW X5. Unfortunately, you want something a little bit more with flair, something a little bit sportier. This one right here is the 2016 BMW X6 xDrive30d. Today I'm going to show you around this car and I'm also going to give it a test drive, so stay tuned. If you look at the X6 from the front, you get this really muscular hood with these lines that converge towards the center of the car. Massive grills on this one for extra oomph. Also, LED headlights, by the way. Now, when you get on over to the profile of the BMW X6, all the flair really does come out. So starting off with this sloping roofline, it gives you a more sporty looking design. So although you're getting a very practical 5-seater SUV, you still enjoy the sportiness that you would typically get with the likes of coupe cars. There is this honorary stepboard, which honestly doesn't really serve much purpose, but yes, it gives you a little bit more sporty looking dynamic. Flared wheel arches up front and on the rears, and you also get 20-inch rims with this one. More design stuff would be this satin wing mirrors, and you also get these slats on the side, which actually do lead somewhere. The rear part of the X6 is where some opinions could be divided, wherein you would usually get a tailgate with a flat back. This one, it gives you a more BMW GT oriented look, but it still is high enough to be very practical. So you do get your X6 badge over there, some really huge tail lamps, and this is still a power tailgate. Let's look at how that folds. That's more of a hatchback design. And over here you have this parcel shelf, which is quite interesting because it folds in a really unique way. And in here you're looking at over 580 liters of space. Sure, the space isn't as big as what you would get with an X5, but that is the compromise you pay for this extra flair in terms of looks. Down here you also get a false floor with no spare tire, unfortunately, but you also get these tie downs on either side, and they are also in chrome. To the side you also get a first aid kit that just folds over like that. Don't think that the X6 only looks good, because under the engine bay is a punchy engine to match it to. This one right here is a 3-liter twin turbocharged inline 6 N57 engine, which makes 258 horsepower and a punchy 560 Newton meters of torque. Now inside the X6, you check the door thud. Of course, it's a BMW. It's supposed to sound great. Now start the car up, get push button start, and you're greeted with that classic BMW chime. You still do bathe in the typical leather you would get with BMW, which means it's incredibly supple. Although don't think that your seats are soft, because they are incredibly firm and supportive. You get nice bolsters on this one as well, and you get power seats on both the front seats, and you also get two-way power memory for the driver's side. Even your steering wheel, it is also power adjustable, and it goes with your memory. And now when you get on over to the dash, it gets really nice. Why is that so? It's a very two-tier design. There's like a platform that divides the top part of the dash with the middle part of the dash, and you also get two types of like trims on this one. So you get this first more wooden-like trim up above. Down below it is this piano black accent. It's really cool, but what's more for that two-tone or like that two-tier design, if you look at the air vents, sure, on the middle they're your regular air vents, but on either sides there are two air vents stacked upon each other. That's the first time I've seen that in any car. It is quite interesting. To the middle is a screen that is incredibly crisp, responsive, and with a reverse camera controlled by this iDrive controller towards the middle, one of the best in the class. When you get on over to your instrument cluster, the top parts, they are analog, but the bottom parts are actually screens. So on the left side, that shows your trip computer. On the right side as well, also part of your trip computer, it shows you your instantaneous fuel economy. The center of everything is your dual zone climate control, and below that are two cup holders. On either sides of the doors though, you get even bigger jug holders. Then your shifter is your typical BMW shifter with manual mode, and you press P up top to park it. What's nice is if you put this car into reverse, not only do you get your reverse camera, but your side mirror also tilts down to show you the curb better. Just beside the shifter is your driving mode selection. So you have Sport mode, Sport Plus, Comfort, and Eco Pro. You also get an electronic parking brake with this one. More cubbies here. This armrest does fold to either sides. Then of course your glove box, it is also decently sized. If you're thinking about getting the X5 and you thought that maybe I should get the X6, but it might be a little bit impractical for the second row, well, now let's check the second row. First, we check the door. and it sounds still even better than the front. And when you're back here, you're gonna expect headroom to be at a premium, and yes, that is true. Compared to the X5, headroom is definitely less, but unless you're over 6 feet tall, headroom here is surprisingly decent. Your legroom and your feet room though, that is abundant. There's so much feet room and legroom for this one. You also get map pockets, and all the materials, you know, behind these seats, they are very high quality feeling. Even on the side, it's all soft touch. You even get a speaker over there, a huge jug holder too. Then even towards the sides of the seats, there are these tiny cubbies. Put your phone over there. The bolsters on the seats, they are still there. It's not as aggressive as the front, but you will be held in place if the driver does want to corner this car just a little bit. To the center are these armrests, and it's one of the firmest armrests I've tried ever. You even get these two cup holders in the middle, two air vents. You get a place to put half a phone. Then you also get two 12-volt outlets back here. What could be a little bit odd though is it can get a little bit claustrophobic back here. Even though you do get these rear quarter panels, the light that enters the cabin at the back still isn't the best. But again, that's price to pay for a sporty looking SUV. In the center, if you want to carry 3 people, you can kind of do it. The car is moderately wide, but I wouldn't be the happiest. Let's just put it at that. Driving the 2016 BMW X6. Early on, we were trying to kind of market this car as like an X5 that's a bit more sporty, but still very practical, and we can easily demonstrate that now because there are 5 of us in the car, so it's jam-packed. We're just gonna feel how much torque this car has. So first off, okay, let's feel the torque, and it is incredibly torquey. It really doesn't feel like a diesel. Sure, you get that diesel torque, but feels much more like a gasoline engine. It's incredibly refined. It's so smooth, you don't feel any vibrations with this car. Now on good roads, the suspension, it's all right. It's on the comfy side. However, when you do get to a bit more rough roads, that's where it gets kind of confusing, because this X6 is supposedly that sporty oriented X5, and you would think that it'll handle a bit better, but actually the suspension is soft enough to not be sporty, but also not exactly the most comfortable to be very comfort oriented. It is kind of on the I'm not exactly sure what I want to do side. However, you still have that very great looking sloping roofline that pretty much makes up for it. When you do take this corner fast, everyone has to hold on and you just power through it. The engine responds so fast. This 8-speed transmission right here, among the best, if not the best in the industry, is still fast enough for me to be able to safely compare it to a dual clutch transmission. A lot of people would argue that you can't really get any more responsive than a dual clutch, but with BMW ZF transmissions, there's really not much lacking. You just power through it, you floor the throttle, and I'm currently in comfort mode, so let me try putting this car into sport mode, turning off traction control. It has a great engine though. You might think that this car would sound like one of those older inline-6 BMWs with that turbine-like sounding engine, and it still does, despite this car having a diesel engine. When you do buy this car, chances are you won't really take it off-road, you won't take it racing either, but what you will do is go on really long motorway trips. And is it comfortable on the motorway, on the great roads? Absolutely so. It simply is so quiet in here. Even if I have the AC on full blast right now, that's probably the only audible thing that I can perceive within the cabin. It is a very refined cruiser after all. So you get a very sporty look, but you can also bask in the comfort of these plush leather, and they are firm enough to keep your back sane even on long journeys. You don't feel like the bolsters are lacking in any way. I don't feel like the firmness will give me big back problems over long journeys. Even over those rumble strips, it simply is a great car. Now, would I pick this over an X5? Personally, maybe not. However, there are those certain people who really do want the extra flair, and the BMW X6 can definitely deliver that while still giving you roughly the same amount of practicality as the BMW X5. If there is some sort of downside to that sloping roofline, would be your visibility, because out the back, despite Diego not being there with his head blocking the way, the rear windshield is really quite small, so it's not really best for seeing out of it. However, you do enjoy your reverse camera with swiveling lines, by the way, and of course your folding passenger side wing mirror, so if you are parking this car, you wouldn't really have a hard time. One thing though is that visibility, even at the front with these really sloping and rather thick pillars, that could be a little bit limited, but it isn't too hard and you can easily get used to the car pretty quickly. To be honest, before I did this review, I was quite skeptical because a lot of people have been telling me that the BMW X6 is that kind of nonsense car since there is a BMW X5. But you know, driving this, I understand kind of why people would buy one. It really does give you that extra flair without compromising the BMW feel of it. Yes, the steering is also not the most responsive. It doesn't feel like a 3 Series. It's not as nimble as that, but if you do compare it to the sedan version or something like the BMW 5 Series, at least this size, it really isn't too bad. The chassis, it is tight enough, and the ride is still rather on the more supple side. Not the most supple, but we're getting there. So this particular BMW X6 is for sale, and again, this is a 2016 model with 18,600 kilometers on it, and I will put the owner's number down below. You can go ahead and call the owner if you're interested in this car, and perhaps you can go home with your very first sports activity vehicle.